Hi, everybody. Welcome to NewsNite for Friday, September 9th. Great to have you along this week. The election now just 4 days away. What can we expect on Election Day, Tuesday the 13th? Akron City Council decides it wants a charter amendment on the November ballot. But why? And the governor gets the last word in on Kelley Williams-Bolar. Did he make the right decision? Those stories and more next on NewsNite. The ballots are already being cast in the much-anticipated September primary. Let's get to the big discussion. Great to have along Ed Esposito from WAKR with us this week. Also great to welcome Stephanie Warsmith from the Akron Beacon-Journal. And great to have her tag team partner from the newsroom, Phil Trexler. All right, we're some 96 hours out, however you look at it right there. The Williams camp, the Plasquella camp, and the Democratic primary for the Akron mayoral campaign. The Plasquella camp bought time on the Today Show today. I'm really thinking that they are going to pull out all the stops and spend a lot of money here.
Well, there's a lot of people in Lake County that can vote for the mayor of Akron, isn't there? A lot of people from Cleveland can vote.
But that's unique.
No, it's
for a
not.
mayoral primary
No,
to
it's
buy
not.
That kind of time.
It's not unique. He's got what, $140,000. I mean, he can throw money. He could buy time on. He could buy time on the nightly news with Brian Williams. I mean, he's got enough money to do that. Where Mike Williams is largely restricted to cable television, radio, and social media, web-based.
Well, and Plasquella also has the support of this independent expenditure group that is putting a lot of money into his campaign as well. So he has the advantage of.
Who are they? What is that?
Well, that is a group of prominent business leaders from the community. Dan Collintone from the Chamber is one of the members of the board, who have started this independent expenditure group. They can spend as much as they want. They have to disclose what they spend it on. They don't have to say where they're getting their money from. And this is because of a big recent Supreme Court decision that allowed these types of expenditures to happen from corporations, unions, groups like that.
So-called 529 groups.
Right. And this is really one of the first times, besides the local congressional races, that we have seen this sort of independent expenditure group come together to support a local candidate. So it is really interesting, and it shows, obviously, that the mayor has a lot of support in the business community.
And that kind of money, that kind of spending, Phil, is that crushing to the Williams camp?
Absolutely. I was talking to an insider 6 months ago, prior to Williams is even declaring, and one of the topics that this guy talked about was the fact that Williams is not going to be able to attract big business or any businesses in the Akron area for fear of alienating, Don Plasquella. So it's coming to fruition now that you're seeing the local businesses rallying behind the mayor for their own gain.
So without the money, where has the Williams camp put their time in over these last 90, 120 days?
They've been doing door-to-door. They've been trying to make sure they get their vote out. They put a lot of resources into social media, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. They've produced a whole series of videos. Disclaimer here, Pat Kennard does them. She's no longer with WAKR.
Which I think they should have made clear.
They should. Didn't. Well, we actually communicated with the Williams campaign when at one point they said, because when they first started using Pat's work, they did say she was formerly, and then they said WAKR's, and they backed off that on our request because she is formally a WAKR reporter. This would be, as if a member of the Beacon-Journal newsroom ran for, let's say, a state representative position, then he could say he was, former Beacon-Journal reporter Stephen Dyer. So, there's no difference to that. But it was one of the side things that I don't think got a lot of traction and attention. But the Williams campaign has definitely been doing this on the cheap because they don't have any money, because most of their money comes from Mike Williams and his own campaign loan from the reports that the Beacon-Journal reported when the financial reports. I thought it was interesting. First Energy, for example, was given more money to Don Plasquella's campaign than Mike Williams reported raising from other sources. Clearly there very much is a Davy versus Goliath.
I was going to say, there's hats off to Mike for trying to use social media to try to attention, but there's no reach there. I mean, I don't know how many clicks he's getting on his commercials on on YouTube or his Facebook page, how many likes that he's getting, but it's the best that he can do with the limited resources.
He's doing better.
He's got a lot of signs out there.
Yeah,
you drive down the Exchange Street going to West Akron, you'll see a lot of Mike Williams for mayor.
One of the interesting things on Facebook and social media, you can actually see how many people watch the videos or visit a certain page. So I think in that social media side, he's one. But again, you don't have the reach that you do with a spot on the Today Show, even though it blankets all of Northeast Ohio, not just the voters in Akron. He's on cable television. He's running fairly aggressively on cable TV. Both of them are on the radio.
But looking at the election, and the last 20 years, every other year, either Don Plisquellic or Mike Williams has been on the ballot, and every other year they've won. These are not unusual names. It's not a first-time name you're going to see on the ballot. Are there any undecideds left who are going in there and not knowing yet who they're going to vote for?
Well, I think, and I have a story in the paper today that's talking. I talked to Ron Kohler from the Elections Board about how he is expecting that this is going to be a higher turnout than normal. Normally, in a municipal primary, you don't have a very high turnout. But then I also talked to Steve Brooks from the University of Akron, from the Bliss Institute, and he said that what it's going to come down to is who between the two of them does the best job of getting out their supporters. That, generally in a primary, it's really the people who are, the diehard party people who are generally going to vote anyway. And so when you get down to it, it's, this get out the vote effort and who's going to be best at it. There's already been 3,800 people who've requested absentee ballots, which is 3 times the number who had this time in 2007 during the last mayoral election. And so there's definitely an increased interest. They ordered 3 times the number of ballots than they have registered Democrats right now.
And I think that was what happened 4 years ago. I think there was a lot of apathy on the side of Plisquellic supporters because they looked at Joe Finley as a non-entity. And I believe that helped the race be a lot closer. This year, I think it's going to be different. Williams obviously brings a lot of name recognition. I think they view him as a legitimate threat. And I think the Plisquellic camp's going to show up.
But there's an interesting dynamic, too. I mean, in one part, the mayor's been out of town for the better part of this week, doing things in Washington. But for a while there, it was a news conference a day, almost. You were earning your money there, weren't you?
Yes.
It was, but it was kind of constant. I think from what I hear about their internal polling, and they don't share the numbers, but they're very confident. They think they have a big lead, and they think they'll be able to carry that forward. But if you look at political strategy, and the turnout is critical, so Stephanie is dead on, spot on, in terms of trying to look at this. I mean, if let's say, for example, the turnout is 50%. That means you need to get 25% plus 1 vote to win. The reality is a quarter of the people are going to vote against you, and a quarter of the people are going to vote for you. So you're really fighting for that middle chunk in there. So, in reality, you're looking for, 10 to 15% plus 1 to get that. So
we haven't mentioned Janice Davis, who is the 3rd Democratic candidate, and no one, I think, including her, expects to win. But I think that there is the thinking is that she could be drawing votes away from the Williams campaign, and so if this ends up being a very close election, then her candidacy, the fact that she's on the ballot, that there's a 3rd candidate, could end up being significant.
Even if she takes 3 to 5%, that's huge, because that 3 to 5% swing, you magnify it. It might be worth 6 points.
A year ago, even 9 months ago, there were people around town saying that really anyone could run against Don Plisquellic because there was such this animosity. There was a group out there that would vote for anybody but Plisquellic. And I haven't really seen that group rear its head here in these last 60 days, like many thought they would.
I think Mike Williams is trying to distance himself from that particular group.
Right.
And he's been successful in doing that. And he had to do that because this group has tried to sway elections in the past and failed.
They're still there. They're
there, but
they're the true believer Plisquellic haters. But they're
not connected with Mike Williams.
I was surprised they aren't making the headlines. They aren't holding the events that maybe they threatened or we thought that they would do.
They did 2 years ago during the recall, and they got their heads handed to them. So in some, what else do you want? The voters already repudiated that strategy and that try. They'll go to the polls again. They'll be the 25% that'll. They'll vote against Don Plisquellic if he brings 50,000 jobs to Akron tomorrow, legitimately. They'll vote against him just because they don't like him.
Yeah. All right, I want to talk more about what the turnout and what the real numbers are going to mean as we turn this discussion now over to NewsNite.net.
For more NewsNite content, including extended discussions, full interviews, and the chance to speak your mind about the issues, join us online at newsnight.net.
Do we really need a charter amendment to address the people we elected to office? Apparently we do. A special session of Akron City Council on Wednesday involved former Councilman Ernie Charles' petitions threatening a charter amendment. Instead, Akron City Council decides they want one of their own. Stephanie, sort this out for people, because I thought we elected these people, we'd be allowed to talk to them if we wanted.
Right. Well, what happened is that Ernie Charles circulated petitions. He got about 4,600 valid signatures to get an issue on the ballot that would require a speaking period during council meetings and committee meetings. Well, his petitions were invalidated because he didn't have the required affidavits on them.
He had one from every voter?
No, the people circulating had to fill out a statement that said that they witnessed, the signatures. So he failed to do that. But what Marco Somerville, the council president, told me is that they were concerned that because he had gotten so many signatures, he actually gathered almost 7,000. If he took it to court and challenged their decision not to put it on the ballot, that a court might say, hey, he got this many signatures, this really should go to the voters. And so they kind of put on their own issue in case he decided to go to court. And then that way they would have their own issue out there that they found to be less onerous than what he was asking for.
Their issue, in a nutshell, is going to be what?
Their issue would require them to pass legislation with a speaking period by next March.
So they're asking the voters to vote to ask them to do something.
It would put it in the... Well, that is true. It would put it in the charter, though, that they have to do this.
I see.
So that they have to pass legislation to do it. But it really, I think, and Marco said that it really was about they didn't want to take the chance that Ernie Charles' issue would get out there and that there wouldn't be something else that they could point to that they thought was better that voters could vote on rather than what Ernie Charles is asking for.
There's a rich history of this strategy at City Hall where someone comes up with something they don't like, so then they come up with their own idea. And so you have these dueling ideas. I mean, they did it with campaign finance. They've done it with other stuff. I just think they were bound to determine not to have Ernie show them up.
Right.
I think this is all about ego.
Oh, well, and, Ernie Charles has a long history with council.
Have we seen these long lines of people turned away on Monday nights at council meetings claiming they weren't heard? Because I haven't seen that.
Well, right now, because of Ernie starting to circulate petitions, which he started a year ago, by the way, they started a thing where a half hour before council, people can come and talk. There's at least one council member there, and there are people from the cabinet and representatives of different city agencies that are there. But Ernie's thing on it is, well, not all of council's there. People should be able to address the entire council. If you want to address the entire council right now, it has to either be during a public hearing on a particular topic, or you have to give a note to the president and ask for permission.
Okay.
And so they think that there should just be a public comment period where anyone can come and talk and all the council's there.
Is this worth all this discussion, Phil?
On the outside, it sounds like citizens should be able to address their representatives, and it's a shame that it's taken a charter amendment in order to do this. So it's a good thing. The meetings are going to go a lot longer than they have in the past. No more of those 17-minute meetings.
I like those.
And I don't know. Let's see. We'll see. There's been sometimes I've attended meetings, and there's reporters are, the equal amount in the audience there. So we'll see how many people show up. I think they've been crowded lately, but we'll see how many people really take advantage of this opportunity.
You can reach a councilman by email. You can reach a councilman by phone. If you show up down there, they have a half an hour beforehand. And I don't know of too many people that have ever called our newsroom saying, Marco wouldn't let me speak.
Right.
Well, does it seem like this is an issue that's really worth taking the time to go to the ballot?
No, it doesn't. This is one of those inside things from a very small group of people, and it's a sexy thing because anybody on the face of it will say you ought to be able to talk to your elected officials. But this whole idea of you have to address all of council. What are they going to do? Make the council people shackle themselves to the floor or put them in stocks so that they have to sit and listen to it? If you're a member of council and you've got someplace else to go and it's public comment time, what if you get up and leave? What if you just get up and say, I'm sorry, whoa, I'm checking the watch here. It's Pittsburgh and the Browns tonight at 8. See you later.
And are you going to cap the amount of time that they're allowed to speak?
Well, because, yeah, I mean, you know,
Well,
should the citizens have a right to filibuster
yeah.
council? I think most people would say no.
Well, those are some of the details I think that they would be working out if the charter amendment is passed. Then between now and March, they say that they would research what other cities do, what their time limits are, the entire speaking period is, and then they would have a public hearing where people can come and talk to them about what they think about what they're thinking about, and then they would pass an ordinance on it. So,
are they going to be able to pray? I mean, you know, the council, you're no longer allowed to have the sectarian, you have to have a non-sectarian prayer now.
No prayer.
I know you're not going to be able to pray, and they're going to limit the speech and what you can talk about. And
they already say the phrase, and declaring an emergency 100 times every Monday night.
Yes, because everything they vote on now is an emergency.
It has to be, which is one of those odd things. We have a few minutes left in this segment. I want to talk, since that's going to be on the ballot in November, there will also be the race for the Akron School Board. Only 2 candidates had enough petitions for the 3 slots. So 6 people have come up in a very short period of time saying they want to be write-in candidates. I don't ever remember us looking at something, at least in the city of Akron, where it was going to come down to whose name you can remember to spell correctly in the polls.
What's fascinating is Amy Graham can't be on the ballot because she submitted petitions. So if she hadn't submitted petitions, she could have filed a write-in. And she tried to get this in through the Board of Elections, but the Board of Elections' hands are pretty much tied by state law, which says if you file petitions and you're denied, you can't run as a write-in candidate. But if you don't file petitions, again, get your 300 names, you can run as a write-in candidate. This is just, you know, when you look at the vagaries of law and getting to the point of not having the affidavit signed. You've got 7,000 signatures, but you didn't sign the affidavit down at the bottom, or you didn't have it on the bottom. Now this ruling, the boards of elections can't help people try and navigate these Byzantine rules. I did a piece, Dulio, our director, and I went down, I think a couple of years ago. I don't even know if he still has the piece, where we actually went down and said, okay, here's what it takes to file for a candidate, file paperwork for office. I mean, you know, it can be daunting. And it's just it's cross the T's, dot the I's. Only, you know, these are election laws from hell that only a lawyer can love.
Well, and the school board candidates have to get, is it 300?
300,000.
More than mayor.
300. Well, and like at-large council, I know, is 50.
Right.
So, you know, that is a lot, and usually they say the rule of thumb is that you should get twice the number. Now, Amy, unfortunately, you know, she wasn't a first-time candidate, so she's been around the bush, because I think a lot of times it's the first-time candidates that really struggle with all these rules and you know, things that you have to do.
In some cases, she had an appeal this week, and as I understand, she got, you know, affidavits and some of these people to say that my signature was thrown out, that really was me. But the board said that by rule, if you sign your signature in cursive on your voting card and you sign a petition in block letters, they won't count it, even if you're there to validate it.
You have to affix your signature the way it is on the voting card. Do you remember how you signed on the voting card?
When you registered when you were 18 years old? Because that's the signature that still owns you.
You're also comparing it year to year what you put on the sheet, but yeah, it's, rules are rules, and you're supposed to abide by the rules.
We're going to talk about
people
that in the next segment.
People in Akron Public Schools should be abiding by the rules.
You know, I don't disagree with that. Amy knew what the rules were, and she fell short.
And we'll see which of these 6 candidates ends up coming out on top in the write-ins when we look at the election results in November here on NewsNite.
On NewsNite.net, we cover a broader range of topics than we can on the air in 27 minutes. Be part of the conversation on our Facebook page and at NewsNite.net.
Again, you can watch the extended editions of our interviews or watch this broadcast again, as well as our blog over on NewsNite.net. Governor Kasich this week making major headlines in the Kelley Williams-Bolar case. He's the one that took this to another level when he was all touched by it back in the spring. And now, after the parole board says she doesn't deserve any leniency at all, he makes the big decision this week.
I don't think he paid any attention whatsoever to the prosecutor, the judge, the jury, or the parole board. I think his mind was made up in February, and he was waiting to go through the process, which didn't include an appeal to a trial court. My personal opinion is the governor is guilty of racial pandering. You can't draw any other conclusion other than that based on his comments. Very limited comments that he made following this, where he talked about how, you know, he wanted to send a message to the African American community. You know, this, and I think
so. If a white woman had done the same thing,
a white woman did do the same thing. A woman from North Canton went to jail for falsifying and tampering with records, and she was ordered to repay jobs and family service. She got 10 days in jail. She got a couple of years of probation, and this happened in Summit County Court. It happened with Judge Tom Parker. I forget Zemba, I forget her first name. She went through the system, but there was no Al Sharpton coming to the rescue for her. There was no Reverend Jesse Jackson coming to the rescue for her. There was no Change.org pushing petitions on her behalf.
And there was no John Kasich.
And there was no John Kasich's wife doing this. I think clearly that the governor caved to political correctness rather than letting the system take its course.
While there may not have been any Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton on that woman's behalf, there also wasn't any media attention on her behalf. We all created Kelley Williams-Bolar. The media, who wrote misinformation from the beginning and continued to delve into misinformation. The prosecution, who failed to plead this case down to a misdemeanor as it should have been. The judge, who gave a gratuitous 10-day jail sentence. And a judge who flip-flopped, depending on the opinions of the public.
How about the
defendant? We all created this.
How about the defendant,
We all
Phil?
created this.
How about the defendant?
And the defendant lied her butt off.
Right.
Okay? She did. But the bottom line is, cases like this, low-level felonies, are routinely pleaded down to misdemeanors, especially for first-time offenders. That wasn't done. Some sort of sensible thought should have come across here months ago. Okay? Kasich only did what should have been done back in a year ago, and that's all he did.
I think it's very convenient to use this to support that narrative. That narrative that it should have been bumped down, where the evidence doesn't hold true to that.
I don't think there's evidence that he was pandering to the black community.
I think there. What do you when he openly says he made this decision because he wanted to he basically wanted to send a message to the African American community. That was his quote,
he wanted to right what was wrong and fix what was wrong in the beginning.
If he wants to fix what was wrong,
should she be tagged with a felony? It was a felony that she could get rid of.
If he wants to fix what's
anyway.
wrong, is he going to follow up and change the law on this? Is he going to follow up with other mothers?
No.
With the Zemba woman in North Canton who had the exact same thing. He's not doing that.
There were a lot of white people who were supporting Kelley Williams-Bolar because the case has gotten so far out of hand.
And there's a lot of black people that don't support Kelley Williams-Bolar because they don't like the message this sent. Because as much as some editorial judgments may think that she represents a single mom struggling and it fits into that narrative, there's another editorial slant to this too, that she also represents, she and her father, clearly by the information that's come out since then, there's a real pushback on this grifter-style mentality that assistance programs are the end, not the means to an end. Right. And I think when you look at this case, when you look at her in particular, the thing to me that is there are things to me that are just so incredibly damning that I wonder, how did the governor not pay attention? How does the governor not pay attention to the fact that she renewed her driver's license 10 days before going to the parole board and used the same address that she went to jail for, Phil?
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
I understand.
So if that this whole part of pleading down to a misdemeanor requires responsibility and contrition. There is none from her that's credible.
Don't know, because it was never. First of all, the judge in this case has spoken to reporters about the lack of a plea offer coming from the prosecutor's office. Mm-hmm. Whether the prosecutor, it became a personal case. Cases like this, school boards have gone and sued to get their money back, because let's face it, this is what it's all about. It's about the Copley Fairlawn schools, which I'm a taxpayer, not getting their money for the Williams-Bolar Williams kids. It's about money. Sue them in court, okay? Don't tag a woman with a felony for fudging some records, okay? She's guilty as anything over that, all right? But do you tag her with a felony for a first-time offender, not offer her a plea deal, throw her in jail, plaster her picture on the front page of the paper in black and white? That's what I'm saying. We all created this, and now we're all up in arms about
Wasn't
something.
That a four-color photo?
Yeah, but her jail uniform is black.
Stuck in the middle of all these volleys going over.
Well, one of the things that surprised me about this, and I think Bob Dyer, I'm not sure if it's a column today or one that he's going to do for the weekend, is going to talk about this. Why does a Republican governor decide to do this? The African American community is not his base of support. Generally, they vote Democratic. And so, and also the Republicans are supposed to be tough on crime. And so, that's one of the reasons that I was kind of surprised. But the fact that he took it such an interest in it from the very beginning, I guess, like Ed said, maybe he, decided maybe it was Phil that said maybe he decided that this was excessive then and that he was going to do something about it. But that was what surprised me the most about his decision, and the fact that the parole board didn't recommend clemency, and here he decides not to listen to them, and to make his own decision. And so, but I'm not sure what is the political motive behind this. I don't get that.
I'm surprised, having attended the parole board hearing, of which there were multiple minority members who were the most critical in their discussions one-on-one. They each had a chance to ask questions of Kelley Williams-Bolar on her actions and asking her why she continues to use the wrong address, why she continues to not understand why, if it says, if you sign here, you are validating this record or you're going to be guilty of a felony. Who asked her about lying about being a veteran in the military, and just this entire pattern. They were the most critical of Kelley Williams-Bolar. And if you read that 16-page release from the parole board, it's damning.
It is damning.
There's no
it's not
sign
about
there.
whether she's guilty or innocent. We all agree she's guilty as anything. The problem is bringing some sensibility into this case, correcting what should have been done a year ago, and plead this case down to a misdemeanor.
Is it
and
correct,
let her go
or
on?
because that's what just happens with the other cases?
No, it's the correct thing to do. That's what this society is built on, the second chances. You indicted her on a felony, bring her into court, plead her to the misdemeanor, and move on.
Would she have taken it?
No, I don't think she would.
You don't know that. You don't know that because it was never offered on the record.
It's never offered on the record. The prosecutors have told me that it was clear that the father and Kelley Williams-Bolar had no intention of doing that. When you talk to the attorney for the Copley-Fairlawn Schools District, who is paid for with your money, when you talk to them, they consistently at every point in this, Phil, said no, no, no. I think they were playing judicial roulette. I think they were letting it run. They wanted to see. They figured the ball was going to fall in their slot and they were going to win. And they didn't. And now they did because the ball fell in 00 green, which happens to be John Kasich.
The last word.
The last word is I think the governor brought some sense to a nonsensical case.
So much to talk about in this case. It is over, but we'll see about the long-term impact. Phil, Stephanie, Ed, thank you so much, and thanks for being with us. We'll see you next Friday and look at the election results here on Newsnight. Good night.